You ever have that feeling where you're just drowning in a sea of words? You're trying to explain something really important, but the more you talk, the more confusing it gets? Yeah, we've all been there. But what if the secret to being crystal clear wasn't about learning more words, but way, way fewer?
No, really, just think about that for a second. What if you had a toolkit that could connect people across cultures? Like a universal translator that's built right into the English you already know. It sounds kind of like science fiction, right? But this idea is very real, and it all comes down to one surprisingly small number.
850. That's it. That's the magic number. It's the core of a whole system designed to express pretty much any essential idea you can think of. And it's not just a random list of words. It's a whole philosophy of communication. So let's see how it actually works. So welcome to the world of basic English. And just to be clear, this is not bad or broken English, not at all. It's a super efficient, distilled version of the language that has one goal: pure, simple clarity. It was designed for global communication, for teaching, and honestly, for just sharpening your own thinking. To really get a feel for it, we're going to put one of these 850 words under the microscope.
All right, let's dive in. For our case study today, we've picked a humble, everyday word from the list. It's a word you've probably used a million times without even thinking about it. Ink.
Yep, ink totally made the cut. It is one of the chosen 850. So why this word? Well, because it represents something fundamental, doesn't it? The power to make our ideas permanent, to give thoughts a physical form. You see, in the world of basic English, ink isn't just some liquid. It's a foundational building block for communication.
And before we get into the heavy stuff, here's a fun little fact. The word ink is pronounced ink, which makes it sound exactly like ink, like the abbreviation for a company. Kind of a neat coincidence for a word that's all about making things official, right? Okay, now let's see how this one small word really pulls its weight.
Okay, first up, let's look at ink as a thing, as a physical substance. We're talking about its job as a noun.
Now, this is where it gets really, really clever. Look at that definition, a tint. It doesn't use some complicated scientific term. Why? Because tint is another one of the 850 words. The system is defining itself using its own parts. It's like this elegant, self-contained little universe of meaning.
And here it is in action. The ink on the paper has dried. It's simple, it's direct, and it's pretty much universally understood. There is zero confusion there. Whether you're a native English speaker or you're just starting out, you know exactly what that means.
And this right here is the core idea. Instead of needing a whole bunch of different words like pigment or dye or coloration, basic English gives you one simple, powerful tool: tint. It's all about getting the maximum amount of meaning out of the minimum number of words. It's just linguistic efficiency at its absolute best.
But ink is more than just a substance, right? It's also something you do. So let's flip the coin and look at ink as a verb, as an action word.
And here's another reason ink is such a perfect word for this list. As a verb, it's incredibly consistent. Ink, inks, inked, inking. That pattern is a breeze to learn. And that's not an accident. The whole 850-word list is built on this kind of beautiful simplicity.
So the first meaning is to make a mark or write. And look at that. It's explaining itself using other words from the list, like make, mark, and write. It's almost like a self-teaching language. The system just keeps reinforcing itself with every new word you learn. And here's that idea in a simple sentence. He inked his name. It's so direct, isn't it? So active. You can almost feel the pen on the paper. It perfectly captures the idea of signing something, and it does it with just one simple verb. That's the power we're talking about.
And you can really start to see that web of understanding getting stronger. The action of inking is now connected to marking and writing. You're not just memorizing isolated words in a vacuum, you're building a whole network of related ideas, like a little family of concepts that all work together.
But hold on, we're not done yet. This hardworking little word actually has a second job. To ink something can also mean to fill a pen with ink. This is a perfect example of how one core word can do the work of many, covering multiple, related ideas without any fuss.
So here's our final example. She inks her pen. Just 4 words, and that's all it takes to see the entire picture: the person, the tool, the substance, and the action. It's just a masterclass in efficiency. That is basic English in its purest form.
So, we've just dissected one small word and seen how much it can actually do. But what does all of this mean in the grand scheme of things? Let's kind of zoom out and connect the dots. You know, the real takeaway here is that ink is more than just a word. It's proof of a concept. It shows us that having a massive vocabulary isn't always the key to powerful communication. In fact, sometimes the greatest clarity comes from working with fewer options.
So, why should any of us care about a list of 850 words that was made back in the 1930s? Well, because the problem it was trying to solve is more relevant today than ever. For anyone learning English, a system like this is a lifeline. For teachers, it's a secret weapon for clarity. And for all of us, living in a world that feels both more connected and more divided, it's a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest words can build the strongest bridges.
And that really brings us to the final challenge, doesn't it? This isn't just a language lesson. It's a way of thinking. It forces you to strip away all the jargon and get right to the core of what you're trying to say. So here's a question to leave you with. What's one big, complex idea that you're passionate about, and how would you explain it using only the simplest, most powerful words you know?